Welcome to another episode of the Washington Retirement Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Meikle, and here we talk about Washington State retirement benefits, the best ways to use them, and how to retire earlier than you thought possible. Today's episode, we are talking about 4 ways to get guaranteed income for life. So if you're someone that stresses out about the stock markets, you want to have some type of income that you can rely on to produce income every single month, regardless of market conditions, interest rates, headlines, things like that. I'm going to show you the 4 ways to do it. Now, after we go through all of that, I'm going to talk about the factors that you need to consider when you're thinking about retiring early or going to full retirement benefits. So for those of you that have state pensions, which is probably everybody here, we're going to go look at the considerations between collecting early, taking that reduced benefit, right, getting penalized from the state, or going to the full retirement age, the pros and cons. So we'll go over that topic after we cover the 4 ways to get guaranteed income for life. Now, if you're someone that wants help with your investments, so if you're in Plan 3 or you got deferred comp, you're not sure what to invest in, when to make changes, if you're too risky or don't have enough risk, so you're not seeing the growth that you think you should be getting, I have an investment subscription service that's exclusive for Washington State employees. It's a low monthly cost, cancel anytime you want, but it does exactly that. It analyzes the Plan 3 and deferred compensation investment options. I have 10 different portfolios that you can kind of choose from. Some are a little bit more actively managed, some are passive, but they all go from, I don't want much risk at all, so you give me all the risk, I want the max gains. So there's something in there for everybody. And if you just, at the end of the day, if all it does is give you peace of mind of knowing that you are making the right moves, then it's probably worth the time and money to do it. Now, I don't trade these for you guys. It's just giving you guys the tools and the recommendations to do it. You still are responsible for logging in the system, placing the trades. I got videos and tutorials on how to do that. So if you've never done it before, I got you guys covered. So the link for that service is going to be in the show notes or the description of this below. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into the 4 ways to get guaranteed income for life. All right, so the first way to get guaranteed income is through your Social Security. Now, this is a gimme for pretty much anybody as long as you've paid into Social Security during your lifetime. So Social Security looks at your top 35 years of earning history to determine how much you're going to get on a monthly basis. Once you work past 35 years, you're just going to be replacing a lower number in that calculation. And if you have any zeros or years we didn't work during your 35-year history, those are going to be the first ones to get bumped out. Up until you get 35 years of actual earned numbers in there, your benefit amount's going to change quite a bit. So one thing I always like to do with people is when you get a Social Security statement, go back and look at one of the pages that has your earning history on it, and you can see kind of what the last 35 years look like. And if there's any zeros in those calculations, just know that they'll be falling off as you work past 35 years. So Social Security, the earliest you can collect it is age 62. That's the minimum benefit you're able to get. Then you have something called the full retirement age, and it's going to be somewhere between 66 to 67 depending on your age. Now, the most common thing that people get wrong with this is thinking that the full retirement age is their full Social Security amount. So they have to wait or work until that age to get that full amount. And the fact is that's not true. In fact, the only reason that's even on there is that's the age when you can actually start collecting Social Security and be working without getting penalized. So in fact, if you actually were to collect Social Security before your full retirement age and you're working and earning more than that certain threshold, you're going to see your Social Security payment be reduced. It's sort of a penalty for working and earning too much and collecting Social Security. You can't be doing both. So once you hit that full retirement age, it actually doesn't matter anymore what you earn from working. So you can work and earn as much money as you want and not have your Social Security payments be reduced. That's the only reason we have a full retirement age. In fact, if you really wanted to maximize your benefits, you'd wait until the maximum age, which is age 70. So 70 is the absolute most money you can get from the Social Security program. So in essence, anytime you take Social Security before age 70, you're getting a reduced benefit and not the full amount. Now, once you get past 70, it doesn't increase anymore. So you want to make sure you're going to collect this before 70. The second way to get guaranteed lifetime income is from a defined benefit plan, otherwise known as a pension. Now, these things are becoming more and more rare, and only about 8% of people still have these things. So if you're one of them, feel very fortunate and thankful that you have one. Now, these things are just like Social Security. They're a guaranteed paycheck that's going to last the rest of your life. Now, how they work is going to depend on the company or the state you got it from. They all have their different factors and formulas to calculate it. So you kind of have to look into that to know what that income is going to be. Now, for the most part, all of these pension plans have some certain characteristics that are similar. So they're going to have a full retirement age, or the age you need to be before you can get a pension payout in full. Sometimes Sometimes they require a certain number of years working to get it. Sometimes they penalize you if you take it earlier than that. So for like the Washington State retirement system, it's either 10 years or 5 years, depending on which plan you're on. So your employer may have different set of rules. So something to check on to see if you're going to be entitled to that benefit or if you have earned it. The third way to get guaranteed lifetime income is by using an immediate annuity. Now, an annuity is a contract with a life insurance company that states that if you give them a lump sum of money, they're going to guarantee that you're going to receive this income for the rest of your life. Now, immediate annuity is one that starts right away, often within the first year. You're going to start taking these payments. Now, immediate annuities typically have substantial payouts in the first year of getting them. And that's why a big reason why a lot of people get them is that they can't afford to wait any longer than that and they need the money right away. But it is a good option if you're really wanting the money to start today and you're looking for a high guaranteed payout that you can't really find anywhere else. So the fourth way to get guaranteed lifetime income is by using an income rider that's attached to an annuity. Now, what makes these things different than the immediate annuity is you have to wait at least 1 year before turning the income stream on. And every year you wait past that, you're going to get a guaranteed roll for percentage increase and what your payment's going to be in the future. If you waited 5 years before turning on the income stream, you're going to have a much higher payout. So these annuities are actually the most common ones sold for income purposes, and ideally for people that can afford to wait those 1, 2, or 3 years and have other assets to live off of in the meantime. And because they have this feature where the longer you wait, the higher income payment is going to be, typically they're going to give you the higher income payment when compared to immediate annuity in the long run. But it's important to consider both before choosing one. Now, these income annuities can be tied to either a variable annuity contract or an index annuity contract. The variable annuities that have these riders on them are often pretty expensive because you have to pay for the income rider, plus you have to pay for the annuity itself, and then you have to pay for the investments in the account. So typically these are going to be pretty expensive contracts. And while the sales pitch that a lot of these people will use is that because you're earning interest, because you're invested in the market, it's going to offset the fee. Typically it doesn't work out quite that well. So just be cautious before purchasing a variable annuity for guaranteed income. When you're using an indexed annuity for guaranteed income, indexed annuities are tied to the stock market in the sense that you're going to get some of the growth, but none of the losses. So they're fully protected from it. So even though you're not going to get the full performance of the stock market in general, you get none of the losses, and the fees are usually substantially less. So your money stands a much better chance of lasting longer in this retirement account. Now, typically money put into an income annuity will actually run out of cash value over the long run. If these annuities pay out 4, 5, or 6% per year, eventually it's going to eat away at the principal that you put into there, and then that account's going to be worth nothing anymore. But because it's an annuity, they're on the hook to continue those payments for the rest of your life. And that's why you buy them, is to the account goes down, you're going to have that guaranteed payment that lasts the rest of your life.
All right, so now let's dive right into the topic of the day, which is what factors should you be considering when deciding to retire early or to go to your full retirement age for your pension. So first things first, we all know the financial piece, that if I retire earlier and I decide to collect earlier, I'm going to get a reduced pension paycheck for life. The reduction is permanent. If I continue to work or delay collecting my pension up to full retirement, then I will get no penalty. So I've made some videos on this in the past, but for the most part, for those that retire early, even though we get a reduced paycheck, the sheer fact that we're getting it years earlier than we otherwise would have, and that we're now entitled to cost of living adjustments, by the time we got to our full retirement age, we would have pocketed a substantial amount of money, usually in the 6-figure range, and that the reduction we took, the amount of time that it would take to catch up with what we put in our pocket is oftentimes north of 20 years. So oftentimes the break even when I run it is like late 80s, like 87 or so. And when I say break even, it's the amount of money that I'm missing from going early versus what I would have got if I would have waited until my full retirement age. You look at the difference there. You know, how long would it take that difference to make up for the cash that I gave up taking early? It's about 27 years. So for example, if that's still not clear yet, let's say at age 60, you said, hey, I'm going to take my pension early. And instead of getting, $2,500 a month, if I waited to 62, I got it at 60 and I took out 5% reduction. That means that I'm only going to get about $2,375 per month. So I'm giving up $125 a month for the rest of my life. Now, some people would see that as negative. Oh, I don't want to do that. It's $125 a month, guys. It's $1,500 per year. If $1,500 a year cut is going to make or break retirement, early retirement's probably not for you because there's going to be some other expenses that come up that's going to cost way more than that. And if you can't cover your expenses from getting $1,500 a month less, then you're not ready for retirement yet. You need to keep working and keep saving more. If you took that $1,500 a month, the difference, right, the reduction that we got, and we look at it as what did we pocket? We pocketed that $2,375 per month. We would have pocketed $28,500 just for the first year. We're going to do that for 2 full years, remember, because we retired at 60. So we get from 60, 61, then 60, 62. Before I even got to my full retirement age, I would have pocketed $57,000. I would have took it from the state, and I already had that in my wallet. Now, if I divided that by what we gave up, that $1,500 per month or per year, it's about 38 years. So the break even in that case is 38 years. You have to be 100 years old before that $1,500 a month that you gave up would have offset the $57,000 that you took early. So early retirement penalties, not as scary as they may seem when you break it down the right way. But that's just the financial piece. There's more to it. So other thing to remember that when you decide to retire early versus going to your full age is once you separate service, your employer's not paying your healthcare anymore. That's up to you to fund. If you have a spouse, maybe you can hop onto their plan. But if they're also retiring soon, or maybe you were covering them because you had the cheaper healthcare plan, now you guys got to figure out how to fund healthcare. And a lot of people will keep on working because they're scared of healthcare costs. It is too expensive. Now, depending on where you get coverage from, the type of coverage that you need, what your assets are, maybe it's a good strategy. But I hate seeing people work just for the healthcare benefits. Because if you look at it in the right way or plan for it correctly, it should never hinder you from retiring when you want to. So healthcare coverage for state employees, you can get into the PEB retirement system. That's the Public Employees Benefits Board, as long as your employer pays into it. So I know I've worked with people in the past that work for certain cities that don't pay into the PEB system, so they're not eligible to get PEB retirement coverage. So as long as your employer pays into the PEB system, you're currently on PEB or on SEB, the School Employees Benefits Board, then you're eligible for the PEB when you go into retirement. Now, PEB covers you, your spouse, or any other dependent children that you have. Coverages and options are pretty similar to what you currently have while working. The biggest difference is you got to fund the whole thing. Your employer's not paying for it anymore. So one thing with the retirement is you always have to account for that healthcare bill, and it can be substantial. So a lot of clients will use the uniform medical plan that's Regents Blue Shield. It's the one that I've seen most often. It's what most of my clients use. Even clients that I've helped retire 10 years ago, they're still on that same plan. Now, it is the most expensive plan out there, but it does cover them when they need it. And they have very little to no out-of-pocket expenses from being on that plan. Now, costs for a couple, once you're past 65, right now it's like $800 a month or so. When you're both under 65, it's closer to like $1,600 per month. Now, once one of you reaches age 65 and becomes eligible for Medicare, PEB actually discounts it. So I believe it's something like $1,300 per month for your spouse or yourself, whoever's not 65 yet to be covered, plus the other person that is covered by Medicare. PEB now becomes their second to pay, almost like a Medicare Advantage plan. So healthcare is something you definitely want to consider before choosing to go retire early or not. Also, don't let it hinder you from retiring earlier. I had the conversation last week with somebody who that was their biggest thing. And when we actually put it as a budget item, the money they were getting strictly from pensions and Social Security was more than enough to cover their daily living and their increased healthcare bill. Next thing to consider is Social Security timing. Remember that Social Security benefits don't start until age 62. So if you're going to pull the trigger age 58, you got to bridge for at least 4 years before you're even eligible to start taking Social Security. So you have to bridge those gaps. You can bridge them through either working part-time, from taking from your savings, things like that. Knowing when you want to take Social Security, being fluid with adjusting when to collect benefits and when to wait, it's also a good strategy. If the plan is to maximize benefits and hold off till 70, and you're nervous about taking money from the market, you may find yourself working or stressing more than you really should be. So knowing when to take Social Security, knowing that waiting for the high benefit isn't always the best option. While it may give you more in the long run, there's something to be said about getting money in your pocket and doing things while you're still young and able. A few other things that you need to consider are your income sources. Where is the income coming from? So if we're going to retire early or go to our full benefit, we need to know how much we can actually draw from our retirement savings. We don't want to pull out too much that we run out of money, but we also don't want to leave way too much where we could have enjoyed it earlier or added more years to our retirement. So you need to look at where our investments are at. It's best to put them all on one sheet. Doesn't matter what advisor has it, if it's an annuity, brokerage, life insurance. It's best if you could just put it on one spreadsheet just to get an idea of where all your money is at. And then I would even make a column that tells the tax status. Is it a taxable account? Is it a retirement account where it goes tax free? Is it a Roth account? So you need to have an idea of what the taxability is of each account. That way, when you pull money out, you kind of know what the tax impact is. Next thing to consider is just the cost of living and your lifestyle. I've had it more in this past year than I've seen throughout my career of people coming to us asking for help to retire early, and they don't have a budget, or they don't really know what they spend, or their budget's out of control. They're not willing to cut back on their lifestyle, but they want to retire. And it doesn't work that way. If you're making $200,000-$300,000 per year and you're used to spending $180,000-$200,000 a year, and now you're retired and you can only make $80,000 or $100,000 a year, something's got to give. You can't keep spending like you were when you were making, $300,000. You have to reduce your budget. And some people have a really hard time letting that go. And if you have enough saved, maybe it works out. Maybe you don't have to cut back as much, but it's really, really hard to maintain that level of spending and lifestyle if the savings isn't there, if there's no strategy behind how to maintain the savings, how to distribute properly. So I find myself in a position of trying to talk people to spend less than they currently are just to make it work. Because if they want to retire early, they got to spend less. And at the end of the day, if they refuse to spend less or can't find a way out of it, then unfortunately they have to keep working. Because if you really need a certain lifestyle and you don't have enough saved, those are really the only options that you have. I hate telling people that they can't retire yet and they got to keep working, but the thing is, it's almost self-inflicted. That if they had a more reasonable budget or a less extravagant plans every single month, or even they just sat down and actually gave me a real budget and they just kind of throw blanket numbers out, maybe it'll work out. When someone gives me numbers of, I spend $1,000 a month on this and $2,000 on this, those are just too even. Now, ballparks are okay, at least in the initial stages, but at some point you need to drill down. Are you really spending $1,000 a month on groceries, or is it $850? Or is it $1,200? It does make a difference. Compound over time, month over month, those things will impact. When we run financial plans, we also use inflation adjustments, and inflating a monthly bill at $80 a month at 3% versus inflating one at $1,200 a month for 3% adds up and can really be a big thing down the road. And so dialing into your budgets to get more granular and knowing what the actual expenses are, how much do we actually plan or actually do spend, is really important when it comes down to it. Because if you say we're budgeting $1,000 a month for vacations, but you're actually not spending that, or you're not actually putting that in the bank, you're just kind of putting your credit card when you go on vacation, that's not really a budget or a solid plan. You need to know what's actively going into savings or what is actively being spent. When I do my budgets, I typically don't even count savings. I just see what is being spent on a monthly basis or what will be spent for that year. So if you are saving for that vacation, but you're not taking it for 2 or 3 years, it can kind of muddy the waters a bit, but it is important to see what is actually going out the door each and every month. Now, another consideration is longevity and health. Some of us are born with great genes. Our parents live long, grandparents live long. You may be having a long life ahead of you. So retiring earlier may be a bit scary because your money might have to last 30, 40 years. The nice thing about being a state employee is you've got that pension that's guaranteed for life. Social Security, it's supposed to be there for life. We'll see about that one. But you basically got 2 sources of income that should be guaranteed throughout your lifetime. You also have the ability to purchase things like the TAP annuity or the TERS annuity, PERS annuity, LEF annuity, all these annuities from the state. And there's also the private annuities too, but they don't pay as well. So if you really wanted to have 3 guaranteed streams of income, you could do it. The easiest way not to run out of money is to make sure the income never stops coming in. And the best way to do that is to guarantee it all. Some people have a hard time with letting go and having the money be hands off by buying an annuity, but when they see the returns that it can produce, when it's just peace of mind of getting a certain amount of income coming in every single month, guaranteed, doesn't matter what markets are doing, what the headlines are, what interest rates are, what's going on in the world, it comes in every single month and it grows. It's just something that you'll have a really hard time beating or finding better than trying to do it through the stock market alone. In fact, the clients that end up purchasing TAP annuities actually are able to stay in the market and be more aggressive, and they produce higher returns than people that are trying to solely fund their retirement from taking withdrawals from the market. So if you fast forward 2 people in various situations, one has a TAP annuity, one doesn't, typically the person that bought the TAP annuity is going to end up with more money at the end of their life than the person that didn't. And I've done this dozens of times now, and it's typically worked out very well for those that took the leap and secured their future by buying in guaranteed income sources. Final factor that you need to consider is just the emotional side of it. The decision to retire, whether early or not, is very emotional. Doing something you're passionate about your whole life and letting it go, being able to wake up and not feel the need to go to work, can be a very big shock to some people. For some people, going and see their friends is the best part of their day, or their career becomes part of their identity, and they kind of define themselves when it's all said and done. Now, that can be real difficult for some people to get used to. I see some people go back into work or sub or something like that just to have that connection. And now, it is important to maintain that type of social status and culture outside of your workplace, but it doesn't mean you have to keep delaying work by any means. But it is a big shift. And if that's something you see yourself potentially struggling with, there are other financial counselors out there that can kind of help you find that new identity, to find that peace of mind in the new chapter of your life. So as you can see, the decision to retire early or go to your full retirement is much more than it is just a financial decision. There's a lot of different factors that go into play, which is why you need to have someone on your side that understands the Washington state retirement system, the pros and cons of going early versus not. Someone that's done it for the last decade, dozens and dozens of times, that I've had success stories and failure stories. So if you need that type of help, or if you're just curious of, hey, can I do this or not, then feel free to book a call with us and we'll dive right into your situation. I'll leave a link to book that meeting in the show notes or description below. I hope to hear from you guys soon. That's a wrap for this episode. And always remember that your future depends on what you do today. All right, before I sign off, just a real quick legal disclosure that we're required to say as licensed fiduciary advisors. So remember that this is a podcast. It is designed for educational and entertainment purposes only. I don't know you personally, therefore I cannot give you any personal advice. So please don't take anything that we say on the show as being personal, financial, legal, or tax advice. If you want that kind of stuff, make sure you seek out a professional so they can help you with the strategies and investments that are right for you. Also, please remember that despite the name of our show, we are in no way associated with Washington State or the Department of Guidance Systems or any other Washington employer. We're a private-owned firm that specializes in working with Washington state employees, which is why we know so much about this stuff. So remember, we don't work for the state in any way, shape, or form. So please don't confuse us as being an official representative of the state. All right, that's it for the legal stuff. I'll catch you guys all next time.